Welcome to this panel on demography. I will first introduce our speakers. Um, Contrary to what you see in the program, there's a change. Minister Verlinden had to leave for Brussels on an
Yes.
urgent parliamentary business.
Sorry?
Wouter Bekke, MEP, is replacing her. He's the head of CDNV, Christian Democrats, Flemish Democrats in the European Parliament, a former chairman of CDNV, and is a member of the Industry and Energy Committee, among other committees. Matej Tonin, MEP, he's the president of the New Slovenia Party and former defense minister of Slovenia. He's also a member of the same committee on industry and energy, as well as being active in the foreign SEDE committee and foreign affairs and defense committee. I think we both overlap your membership in the same committees, which is, I think, useful for this discussion. Demography is climbing up on the EU agenda. Several years ago at the EPP Congress, there would not have been a panel on demography, I know, because I experienced those congresses. At this Congress, we have our debate here. There was a plenary debate on demography, and there was another side event on demography. So obviously, this topic is rising on the agenda. I think the immediate spur is the declining birth rates across Europe. We also see rising longevity of our population. These two things combined together produce aging of our populations. We have other issues such as gaps on our labor market. And there are other things that come into the mix. I'd like to ask, we'll start with you, Mr. Tonin, perhaps, what are the most important demographic challenges in the European Union, and perhaps if you want to address your country, Slovenia, as well?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Demography is definitely a main challenge for Europe and for Slovenia as well. When we look to the numbers, they are unpleasant. I have to say that the birth rate or the fertility rate in Slovenia is 1.5, which is obviously insufficient when you check what is the average age of the woman when she gets the first child. It is 30 years old. So that tells us that in Slovenia, but I will say that the trends are the same in the Europe, young couples decide for the children relatively late, and the reasons are many. First, I would say insecurity. And this insecurity can originate and can come from different reasons. One is definitely housing, that young couples have a lot of problems how to get appropriate housing for them. Second is definitely jobs. And the third one is the overall security. So, what is the discussion in the society? What is the feeling in the society? How they feel? How secure they feel that they decide for the children? So, all those issues are important in Slovenia. That the birth rate is low. And I would say that the same things goes for the whole European Union, that we are somewhere in the average and there are not many differences. And what is even sadder, or I would say more complicated, that the different countries try to apply the different measures, but even though there are not big differences in the end with the fertility rate or the birth rate.
Yeah. Mr. Bekke, what is your take? What are the most important challenges in demography?
Well, I totally agree with the analysis of my colleague. In the Letta report last year was written that we have a birth rate of 4.7 million babies in 2008, and we have now a birth rate of 3.7 million babies a year. That says something. That's a lack of 1 million yearly. When we look, for example, to Germany, they got a pension rate of 1 million people yearly. 1 million people get retired yearly, and there is an influx into labor market of 600,000 people. So it means 400,000 people yearly less people going to work when you just count on the demographical analysis. I was Minister of Health for some years, and we had a lack of people working in the health sector in Europe between now and 2030. That's not far away, 5 years. We will have a lack of 4 million people only in the healthcare sector. And so the question is, how can we organize our labor market, our demography, our migration policy, and our integration policy? And I think that these are key elements. How organizing the integration of people, and how organizing also the illegal migration, because this is something that is not good, also not good for our labor market.
If I may just to add to this very interesting discussion that how our society will adjust to these negative trends. The colleague just opened the issue of healthcare system, which is under the pressure because of the demography numbers, but I would add the pension system. And there are many other systems which are under the pressure because of the negative trends, and especially for the politicians, it's crucial what we will do to face those numbers, to change the systems. And normally, those decisions are quite unpopular all over Europe.
Yeah.
I calculated, when we say no migration, it means that we have to work every week 1 hour in surplus.
Okay.
Next year, 2 hours in surplus.
Oh.
Next year, the other year, 3 hours in surplus. So it's cumulative. And so I don't think that we can ask the Europeans to work every year 1 hour in surplus a week. So that means that we have to organize our labor market in a good way.
So the same thing goes with the pensions reform, because it's ongoing process in Slovenia, and it's always for the political parties unpopular to advocate that the citizens should work longer. But here we are.
Here we are. Out of curiosity, your calculation, Mr. Becker, was it about Belgium or was it EU-wide?
EU-wide.
EU-wide, okay. This brings me to how to address the problem, right? So you mentioned it's not popular. None of these measures are more popular. Immigration, perhaps, but it's not always easy to sell to the voters. Asking people to work longer, not exactly popular. Increasing the state pension age, or decreasing pensions so as to motivate people to work longer. Increasing the number of migrants I mentioned, encouraging people to have more children, doesn't really work very well so far, at least with the measures that we've tried, or increasing taxes. From these options, the ones that you mentioned, what is the most plausible way of going forward? Please.
Yeah. I said it in the beginning, that's an interesting thing that the European countries try to apply different measures. But even though the results are quite the same, I would just emphasize, or maybe they expose the Hungary case. They have different measures, I would say very family-friendly measures. They try to boost the fertility rate, the birth rate, but in terms of results, obviously they are not doing well. So when we come further with the intellectual discussion, in the end we discover that, okay, normally in the Western Hemisphere, the politicians, we are discussing if we will improve the living conditions, if we will improve the housing conditions. Normally, the young couples will decide for more children. But obviously, this is not the case. So what I'm thinking, and what I think that we should change the whole approach in the society. So, to speaking in a way that joy of life is a positive thing, having a children is a positive thing, not a burden. And this is just the beginning to start to change the mentality. And this is not a short-term process, it's a long-term process. And when you check the numbers, where the economy is doing great, normally the birth rate goes down. I was absolutely sure, because I was working on security issues as a defense minister, that when the things aren't pleasant, that there is a threat of war, there is security issues, that normally reduce the birth rate, but it's not the case. So I have to say that there are so many mixed messages, so many mixed things, that it's difficult to take a specific thing out and say this will work and this will solve the problem.
Indeed, I think demographers are scratching their heads. Even people who work on these issues are not quite certain under which conditions people want to have more children and when not. But when you said we have to speak about having more
Joy of
children, who starts the discussion is my question. I think people don't readily respond to political messages. You know, politicians going out there saying we need to have more children.
Yes, some do. Some do. Yeah.
You think they do?
Yeah, I mean, I will present a case from Slovenia.
Okay.
So we have in Slovenia one, I would say, valley region called, northeastern part of Slovenia, or northeastern of Ljubljana. That I won't go into the details because you probably don't know the geography of Slovenia, but there are two valleys where the birth rate is tremendously high from a Slovenian perspective or from the European perspective. So in those two valleys, it's a normal thing to have 4 to 5 children. And we are all asking why?
Okay.
Why in these two valleys specifically they have more children than in the rest of Slovenia? And the answer is quite simple. So it's part of their society. It's positively accepted. It is a new normal in those two valleys to have more children. So out of this experience, I would definitely say that it might have something with the general attitude in the society.
Okay.
That this is much more important than a specific tax issues, housing issues, and so on.
Mr. Becker, is it possible to boost the birth rate?
Well, I think it's possible, but there is no one measure that you can say, if we do this, then we have a solution for all our problems. I think that a good family policy is very important. That's the first thing, encouraging and supporting people, families in also trying to reach their work-life balance, because that is something that is very, very difficult. Some time ago, somebody told me when my grandparents were there, only my grandfather was at work, and my grandmother, they had 10 children, and they could build a big house. My parents, they worked with 2, and the father and the mother, they had 3 children, and they could build a small house. And now we are working together, me, my wife, and we can't even afford an apartment anymore for 2 children. And so that is something that is in the feeling of the nowadays families. And so a good family policy is one thing. We have to take measures in pensions. When I was party leader, we took the decision to increase the pension age from 65 to 67. It was not popular, but it was necessary. A good work-life balance and working on the on the labor market is very important, and integration. and we have to be very clear on some issues. Uh, the problem of asylum is the illegal migration, and that is that we have to tackle very hardly. It is not possible that there is an approval rate of 40% and 60% has to go back after the procedures and just 14% is doing this, because it means that 40-50% of the people are illegal in Europe. This is not good for them, it's not good for the society, and it's not good for nobody. But we need migration, and we need the migration, and it's only possible to have a good migration policy if there is a good and a very strong integration policy. It means knowing the language, have notice about the culture. It takes efforts in schools, for example. We have an asylum. I was a mayor for 12 years, and we had an asylum center in my town of 500 people, and I was mayor of a small town, 15,000 people. So it was a huge thing to do. But we took the women to the language lessons. We took the children to the schools, and that is something that I think that we have to do. And maybe that was not the case in the past. And so I think that it's not one measure that we have to take, but a lot of measures.
This migration matter, of course, it's a complicated thing. How, I mean, the sense is that perhaps the EU has not been getting the right kind of migration so far. Perhaps people they often come for family reunification, people join new spouses, they get married, but then they don't necessarily come to work. Same with asylum seekers. Of course, people who are entitled to asylum.
We have to push them to go to work.
Because,
because also, when we push them to go to work, it's the best way for integration. Also in my town, the women, there were a lot of women who didn't work. And they were also not very integrated in the society. The best way to get integrated is to push the people to go to work. And we need them. We need them in the supporting sector, we need them in the health sector, we need them in a lot of sectors. And it means also that we have to take into account that some measures, some procedures that we have today, that we have to adapt them. For example, I will give you one example. Nowadays, we have a discussion into a local council about can we be open for people on the front office to be there with how do you say it, with
helmet?
Een hoofddoek,
Hijab.
Headscarf.
Burqa.
yeah,
Headscarf.
yeah.
Headscarf.
So that are issues that we have to discuss and to be open. What is our final goal?
Yeah.
But I would like to say that very clearly that illegal migrations are not the key to solve the demographic issues. That I think we all agree, especially within the EPP. In the last couple of months, I think we stated very clearly that we should deal with the migration much better. And we were discussing in the beginning that because of the demography and the numbers, pressure on society is huge. And those illegal migrants and illegal migration in all countries bring another burden to the society. You were talking about the people who come to our countries and they don't want to work, they just want to use our social benefits, but this just add an extra burden to society. And that's why this cannot solve the problem we are discussing today. But yeah, overall, when we have a declining birth rate, the orderly, legal migration can be the part of, let's say, a solution. But this, in the past, in some countries already happened. I can say that, for example, in 60s, in 70s, the Yugoslavia and Germany was the case. So Germany need a workforce. There were a lot of unsatisfied people in Yugoslavia, so at that time Tito opened the borders and said whoever wants can go. Many went. I think the million people left Yugoslavia and work in the Western Europe. But all those people, they integrated in the society. They worked. They helped the hosting countries, and they help the society back home. And I think that's the point how migration can help us with the demography. So it is, if it is done in an orderly way, so that the people can legally come to the country, and then try to help us to develop our societies, and of course work, pay taxes, and help to develop the country. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
The only point which we conservatives can support.
Do you feel in Slovenia people are open to legal migration, to people coming to work?
Nobody has problems with illegal migration, but at least the people with whom I speak, they have many problems with the illegal migration, especially, I would say, the Western Balkan route. It's quite open.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to Slovenia, ask for asylum, and in between they are doing many different strange things. But even those who come here legally, apply for the working permit, work here, they normally bring families to Slovenia, and the problem is that those people doesn't want to work. So that one who is coming here legally to arrange things, then bringing the others, means that the others are normally just misusing our social system, our social benefits, and that brings even bigger tensions in the society. This is wrong, and this is the wrong message, which means that now the people are very, very skeptic to all types of migration, because they just see it in a way as a misuse of our budget, misuse of our social transfers and social benefits. And that's why it's so important that we integrate those people, that these people who come to our countries work, and that we have a clear message. We have a clear message down the road to the Northern Africa or to the Middle East, that the Europe is not a safe haven when you just can have fun and you don't work, but you receive money. I mean, that's a wrong message. That's put a lot of people from those Northern African and countries from the Middle East, they are pushing the people towards Europe because the message is simply wrong. And I will never remember speaking with a taxi driver in the Brussels, and he was coming from Morocco, for example, the migrant, and we were discussing what's the point, what's the issue, and so on. And then when he told me that if he works in Morocco for the whole month, his monthly salary is around 300 euros, then it's absolutely a normal thing that many people wants to come in Europe, because you have here social benefits which are higher than their monthly salary. That's why I said messaging is crucial, and the governments should send a clear message that if you are coming here, you should work here.
Yeah, okay. I would like to open another potential solution to our demographic predicament. That's the labor participation. Not all groups of the population are employed sufficiently. There's often, we talk about the gap between men and women, women often having a lower labor participation, thus not contributing to public budgets, not being engaged in society. To what extent is this a solution to our demographic problems? What do you think, Mr. Becker?
Well, that is what I just said. We have to push everybody to go to work. That's the only way that we can to give answers to the questions that we have and the needs that we have now to the labor market. And there are a lot of people who have intrinsic the skills to do it, but we need to push them, and it means that from time to time we have to become more stricter on the social benefits.
Yes.
We have to push them, we have to integrate them, and we have also to be more open for integration of these people into our labor market, because there's also something that we have to do. We can ask a lot of things to these people, and we have to do it strongly, strictly, but also creating a culture from, okay, we need you and you're welcome here.
Belgium has a new government, relatively new federal government. These things are in your program now. This is what
Yes.
you want to do. We see all those demonstrations out in the street, people not wanting to change the ways the labor market is organized, the social benefits are distributed, etc. Do you think you can sell this program in Belgium vis-a-vis not only people who come from other countries, but also the local population who is perhaps not used to the kind of things that you're describing?
Well, and that's something that we have to do, and it's quite a paradox. People are thinking, why do I need to go longer to work? And we see people who don't work, and why do I to take efforts and not the other one? But we need to, we ask efforts from everybody. That's the only way that we can our pension system and our social system prepared for the future. So it's difficult, but there is that's the only way to do it.
Okay.
So a question how to keep people in the labor market, I think it's essential, especially with this negative demographic numbers. And I would just like to share the experience from Slovenia. I remember that 15, 20 years ago, people were really waiting the time. They were counting literally the days when the time will come that they can retire and move out of the labor market. But I would say with the improvement of working conditions, today many people are willing to work longer. And we have right now the discussion in the parliament, and we propose the bill, if it's appropriate, and when you reach the time when you can retire, that you can continue with the work, but at the same time you get the full pension, so that there is no cuts. And we have right now the system, if you want to work further, you can, but you get only, I think, 40% of your pension. And I think this is simply wrong, because then people are innovative and they search the way how to get the whole pension and at the same time work on different ways. I think it would be much easier to allow them to work as they want, to pay in the pension fund, to pay in different social funds, but at the same time get the whole pension.
Interesting.
I think that is very important, and that's the philosophy also of what we call the social contract between people and the society. When you do your contributions, you can count on that you can get something back when it is necessary or when you get retired. And what the feeling nowadays is that there are people who are not doing their contributions but get the social benefits of it. And when you say, and we also did it in Belgium, when you get your contributions done when you're 65, 66 years old and you want to work more and longer, okay, just do it. But you don't have to get sanctioned because you do this, because then they only see the disadvantages. And the consequences of this kind of things is then they will do it in the black market and not on the legal market
Exactly,
anymore.
that's the point.
Yeah, I think this is a big challenge across the EU, how to adapt the end of working life, how to make it more flexible, allow people to perhaps work part-time, not lose their pensions when they work. this is easily said, but I think our systems are quite rigid sometimes and very difficult to change. So hopefully the recognition that this is important will grow, and I suppose there are many professions where people would like to work if they can. So, are there any other solutions? I think we're getting closer to the time. I'm being signaled we have to finish now. Okay, so no more time for questions. I was hoping to have more, but there's no way we can continue. Thank you very much, Mr. Tonyin, Mr. Becker. It was a great discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Thank you.